Hey everyone, we're here with Dave. Dave is from StormToker. You know him. I know him. You love him. I love him. Dave also puts on Holler of Doom. This year's Holler of Doom V or 5 for you that don't know Roman numerals. That's as high as I go with Roman numerals V. Like, okay, I know the 5. That's it. Um, Dave, thanks for coming and hanging out with me tonight and chatting.
Hey, no problem, brother. We've been trying to do it for a hot minute, so I'm glad we're
Yeah.
finally here.
Yeah. Woo, we finally made it. Through I guess some fault of my own last time. But that's beside the point.
Well, the universe works in mysterious ways.
That it does, for sure. So first thing, like let's jump into it. Tell us what you see like StormToker as. What is StormToker to you?
Uh, Heavy music with the emphasis on music. Uh, I think we're I don't we don't have a lot of rules with how or why or whatever. I mean, obviously we fuzz out. We have a stoner doom bass, but there's so many other ways we try to stretch that. I like too many weird bands and like being like a kid that likes thrash metal and prog rock. I think that pops up quite often too,
Yes.
especially with with the stuff I can contribute and whatnot. And then you turn a power trio into a quad that but that quad does three different things, so you add three more flavors with keys, saxophone, and vocals. And really I just say I don't know what the fuck we're doing, but it seems calculated at this point to some degree.
Yeah, a little bit anyway, right? Like one of my favorite things the first time seeing you was it was after you all got Travis, and I didn't know what to expect. Like I listened to you a little bit, on Spotify and was like, okay, but I want to know the show. Like I just got to know the show, and I see it, and Travis comes out with the fucking horn, and I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? I love it. Like I fucking love it. I just wanted to I felt like I was doing a little ska thing. Like, all right, hold on.
Yeah, and see, and see, like the core group of us. I mean, that was never necessarily a motivation, like genre wise. But what's funny is when you audition a keyboard player and he brings a saxophone to his audition as well. Uh, which you know sometimes things just have a way of working themselves out. But I mean, he had done his homework. I mean, he knew. I mean, we kind of gave him probably three or four songs that first rehearsal. And like, all right, hey, if you got this and we can do the damn thing or whatever. And now Travis is a genius anyways. Like his previous projects were incredible. I've been growing up watching that dude be as sick of a bass player as anybody in the area, and now he's not even really playing bass, and he's doing what he does now in our band. And it's like, when you're in a band and one of your favorite instrumentalists in the area that does the same instrument you do wants to join your band, it's a pretty good little boost to the confidence. But yeah, now like there was no intent of like, oh yeah, we need to add saxophone. Like we wanted to add a different layer, different flavor to not necessarily stick with the same three. We were kind of trying to get ahead of being stagnant, if that makes sense. Like we were
100%.
three albums deep, and it's like, well, we could do something if we're going to do something interesting and change it up. I mean, it seems like a good time to do that, and I think the rest is kind of history there. Like it's been a really cool experience, and it's grown. I mean, some sound guys got to figure that shit out too. We got to figure that shit out. So it's been a process, but I think we're really finally hitting a stride where that's all kind of honed in a little bit, and I think we're firing on all cylinders.
I think so too. I know every time I see you guys, the entire crowd is absolutely into it. And that's from from a fan's perspective, it's always cool seeing everyone into something that you're also into, especially something so different as like StormToker, because you guys do touch so many musical elements that, is the world really ready for StormToker? I yeah. The reality is like I had a conversation with are you familiar with Orange 9 millimeter?
Off the top of my head, I can't say I do, but.
Okay, so Orange 9mm, they started in the 90s and they went on hiatus probably around 2000, early 2000s. And they are like back playing music together, but like their albums, if you listen to them, they touch on so many elements through the entire album, a little bit of hip hop, there's some hardcore, there's all of these like elements which are so cool. At the end of the day, though, I think people are more ready now than they ever have been for StormToker. That's my point.
Well, I mean, here's hoping. And the thing is, I mean, as much as we like to think we're doing something different, I mean, there's some weird ass bands from the 60s and 70s that, nobody was quite ready for them either. And, there's a little band called Rush where, they have an entire decade in the 80s where they're like, yeah, let's just do synths and keyboards and high 10 production or whatever. And I still love some of that stuff. But, like I said, it's literally just trying to celebrate. I mean, everybody in the band has such a wide array of taste, and we kind of just found a home in the Stoner Doom world. I will say that like my intro to that world, just being younger and being a like I said, a thrash guy. I was a speed freak, so like you're over here listening to these slower songs, and you catch some of those bands that are drony, and you're like, all right, I don't know if I'm quite into what's going on here. But honestly, it was like Anthony kind of showed me, actually, he showed me Windhand. And that was like the band that kind of, as far as like a more modern example of the genre, that was like, all right. I mean, there's riffs, the songwriting's really good, their tones were amazing. That was really what stuck out to me was like the tonality of it. And like when StormToker started, it was like, all right, I'm gonna buy some pedals and tinker around with it. And then I've obviously ended up having more fun than I've ever had in my life playing. So it's like mixing those elements of what's new in my life with all the things I've loved throughout all the years of my enjoyment of music, and I always want to grow in that regard. Like I think there's so much to be explored that to truly keep it interesting and keep it interesting for other people. Like you got to take some chances and you got to tinker with what you're doing, and
Yes.
I think at this point, I think we're well established as a tinkering band, and because I mean, I've had people tell me it's like like they'll say, well, I like there's a lot of people who think the first album they're the best, and that was the most raw energy one. It was coming off us being in Theories of the Apocalypse, me and Anthony, being in our thrash metal band, so there's like a little more edge to it, but there's the weird stuff, and we just progressively got weirder. So but hey, more power to them. If the first album was good, I ain't got nothing against them. I
Well,
keep thinking I'm putting out
that's
the best thing, but everybody's
well,
opinion is theirs.
that absolutely. But I think as a band, right, like the whole goal is to constantly progress, unless and no slight to AC/DC, we love you guys, but they put out it's the same album, the same song constantly, and they do it so good. But when you get down into the underground where we really thrive, like you see bands pushing boundaries, and the reality is like this is to me this is like where the cutting edge shit happens. So if for a band that isn't willing to like experiment and go, you know what, like let's just get fucking weird, like you're you're gonna be stuck kind of in a in these fucking in this lane. Just nothing wrong with it, but let's get weird.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing I've noticed, like with a little bit of uh my observation of like the underground business is if you play it a little safe, you can get to a certain spot pretty easily. But I don't know if you're gonna shatter any glass ceilings.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we're going to be that band to do that or anything like that, but I at least enjoy attempting to do it this way, you know. Um,
But Well, you're
I mean,
being
I just look
authentic to
back.
yourself, which is to me, that's the thing that comes out most between the four of you is like there's no, okay, we're gonna go and be a thrash band or a punk band or a doom band. Like we're just gonna do what we do,
Yeah.
whatever that
Well,
means.
I grew up with, rock and roll parents. So, Fleetwood Mac, uh, Allman Brothers, The Doors, Joe Cocker, a million examples, the Beatles, Stones, whatever. So, you mean that's already in the pot. I become the thrash metal guy or whatever. I developed a love for, some of the older country. Like I said, just stuff that I wouldn't even gave a chance as a kid. But like I said, you can just keep throwing stuff in that musical pot, and you know, like I look at a band and I just look at like let's just the last big movement of music that kind of was all together was probably the new wave of American heavy metal, as they called it, as far as just being like a full blown wave that got popular, they got real popular. But some of the bands that have had the most endearing legacy from that time were the bands that weren't tied to that genre. And like one being the example of like Mastodon. Like Mastodon kind of came in around that same time.
Yeah.
You got like, your Lamb of Gods, your Kill Switch Engages, and your, like bands like God Forbid, whatever. But like all that stuff that got thrown into there, it was like the few bands that kind of was bumping elbows with everybody at that time, but wasn't really what they were. They were able to ascend, and like, they're one of the probably the five. I mean, as far as like, not to call them extreme because they're not far from that now, but as far as like heavy music that I guess I would say the nerds still get down with.
Yeah.
Endearingly, but like, so I've always kind of had that in my brain too, is like being a little left of center, or because I think we have a pretty nice through line through all of our music where you can identify it's us. It's not
Yes.
schizophrenic necessarily. Like we
Just a
don't
little
have
bit,
like,
but it's all right.
but it's not so much part to part. It's not so
Right.
much riff to riff. It's more like song to song, or like even album to album. Like it's a wider, I think, approach to that. Like I said, I like to think we're weird, but I've heard a lot weirder.
Oh yeah.
And there's always the like I said, songwriting. I think as you get older and you got into like the not the peak of your abilities as far as technical skill goes, but like a pretty good level of technical skill, you start kind of trying to condense it back down and like understand the basic thing of what you're doing. And like I think song to song, that's the biggest thing is serve that song.
Yeah.
And but each song doesn't have to be like, all right, we have to be this. Like let's expand on what this is.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, right? Is it's not just a verse, chorus, verse, like, formula. It's let's fucking play music, what we want to do, and we're gonna have fun with it. And that's again going back to the live show, right? Like that's where it really comes out. Like you guys all get down, you know, get down on it. And it's fucking awesome. So like you touched on writing. There's a moth in here. I don't know how it got in here, and it's driving me fucking nuts. So I'm like, ah.
It's all
Um,
good, babe.
so with these edibles ain't shit. Like, what was that? When did you guys start writing that, and what was that process like?
So, as a wonderful world of being a regional band that has 40-hour week jobs and, a pretty extensive history of playing as many shows as we can and trying to travel as much as we can. Not to say we work, not to say we work the hardest. We've done a lot, but pretty much as soon as we got Travis settled with some of the old material so we could play shows. So he's been in the band, I think it was 2 years in December.
Okay.
Um, so there's a lot of stop and go in this process because again, you just get into like a stretch where you're playing so many shows. So we're not often to practice during those times. I'm not a big file sharing guy. I love being able to just get in a room and jam it out. But I will say that Travis has those abilities, and where he's such a multi-instrumental kind of guy, he can actually give us a pretty good like full skeleton or something. But it's also not like slapped to a grid. It's like he allows us to have the openness to you know put the StormToker stank on it, if you will. But but long story short, which is already long, but we started, like I said, roughly right after we got with him. And then, like I said, shows, Holler of Doom season, shows, and it's just really chipping away at it. And the funny thing is, we were trying to consciously like condense like the songs down a little more because like we were like, all right, well, what haven't we really done in 3 or 4 albums? It's like we haven't consciously tried to write shorter songs. So and not to say that like, if it took a different direction, we wouldn't have followed it, but like we just had that in mind. So, and like we just wanted to have a more bite-sized release. So, but it did take, like I said, a decent amount of time, just with all things considered. We ended up having to move practice places. We're practicing in Owensville at Travis' place now. We were practicing at Anthony's house in his garage, but things happened or whatever. But yeah, so we've had a lot to get to where we're at. And like I said, it just so happens it's going to be our shortest release, and well, shortest in time. We Tug Two was 5 songs, but this one's about 10 minutes shorter at with 5 songs. So,
Okay.
but we're and like I said, we're still waiting on the exact date on when the vinyls are gonna be here. So we'll get a release date worked out because we got done recording in like November,
Okay.
maybe very early December. So and we got the files out as soon as we could. So we're waiting on that turnaround or whatever. But we've not too far in, but we've already got a couple going on the follow up. So
Hell yeah. So is that coming out on Third House?
yeah, yeah. I need to follow up, or I left it to Anthony to be the communication, and he's a really great communicator. Wink, wink. But where so
Yes.
need to need to follow up with that, make sure we're good because he said I think late August was about the time, and then we probably figure it out sometime shortly thereafter. But
Yeah, I'll get with Reagan tonight. I should see him here in like an hour or two, and I'll ask him. I know
how
we've
convenient.
yes. Well, we've got a lot going on with Third House, which is fantastic. Of course, you guys, that new crop is fucking
Hmm.
coming. The new hollow leg, well, new, I guess, new-ish. It's coming out on vinyl, so whatever. It, dude, it's like 20 something fucking releases over the next like 8 to 12 months. That's a lot of shit to,
Push.
yes.
Well, I mean that just speaks to how much is going on around here. I mean,
Yeah.
we need a vessel and a vehicle because I will say, this part of the country, it's not the easiest to reach the masses. So,
You know,
yeah,
I think it's more like I guess it depends on what you do, right? Like I like being where we are because of the accessibility to everything around us,
if you're
couple
wi-
hour.
if yeah, if you're willing to work and do that work, then yeah, it's great. But still, it's not it, as easy as it is sometimes to make those relationships and those connections. Sometimes it's like for some reason we've never gone fucking anywhere west. I've been in a band for however many years. I can't get to Missouri. Don't know
Really?
why. I just we haven't been able to do it. Not to say I've tried too hard either, but
I got you.
like
We'll get you
all
there. Dude, what you want to play next weekend? I'll get you there. Like we'll make it happen.
right. Well, as I say, maybe we just need. I'm smoozing the wrong fellas. I need to be
Yeah,
smoozing you.
maybe. I actually
Yeah.
so when Reagan and I went to Vegas in January, we met this dude from St. Louis and like we're chatting. Turns out like the funniest thing, I'm a realtor, right? So turns out this dude's also a realtor and we're in Vegas for the same reason. we're there for music, right? So we're at the festival, so we become buddies. So he came down to legalize Lex and fucking hung out too. Was like,
Okay.
yeah.
Heck
But
yeah.
he used to throw shows out there.
Okay. So
So I
there's an end.
Yep. So I think we've got a connection. I think we can make that happen.
I would say we've been kind of waiting for I would say this has probably been our deadest start to a year that we've ever had, and it's by choice this time around, obviously, because we're just like I said, we're waiting to get that product and to get that album to truly push it. And when you haven't really taken a true break, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to be able to settle and just be like, all right, we'll practice here and there, and we'll play, a couple shows here and there. Like I said, it's the first time in our history that I can say that. Usually we're like 15 to 20 shows deep in a year by now, and when you're at like 5 or 6, it's like for me, the whole thing is playing live. So like, I love all the other parts, but like part of me feels a little hollow after you're not playing out that much. But I broke my foot back in February, so being able to rest the ankle as much as I can right now, like it came at a good time. So I'm
Yeah.
not complaining whatsoever. We'll get back to it, and we'll be stronger than ever.
Well, you're gonna put that fucking thing to work in at the holler.
Man, I walk like 5.5, 6 miles a day probably during that thing because I'm going up
Yeah.
and down the field talking to everybody and the
That's
sun
you know,
beating on you.
that's what a good host does. So let's jump into that. Holler of Doom V5. How so you're in your fifth year. How has it been for you like curating all of it?
Well, it's definitely it gets bigger every year, so it changes. So you're I don't like to use the word pressure because it is what it is, like whatever. But like what you want to accomplish and with what resources you got and like with the location and this, that, and the other, it's like it's one of those things that like once people are there, they think it's the most amazing thing they've ever been to. It's like one of the most unique events I think that this particular community and subgenre really has. Because I mean, I will say a lot of your fests are at venues, and it's just like, all right, it's like another weekend out at the bar, and I
Yeah.
love those fests too. Don't get me wrong, but like when you're able to go do something where it's like, hey, let's go survive in this field for 48 hours, because it's a I mean, hell, we've played everywhere on the bill you can possibly play. Like we played last on Friday, we played last on Saturday, we played early afternoon on Saturday. We obviously I'm in a good position to not have to open on Friday, but uh but and all those different spots that you play in have their own, challenges as well. Like I tried to MC the second one entirely while we were closing out the last day. And obviously all the partying, recreational things and the 90 degrees and the humidity and the whole nine. Like there was like a 2 or 3 hour period year two where I was like almost nonverbal before we played because I was just fucked. I was so fucked up. But and then I had Book of Worms that came from Richmond, Virginia. It's like as soon as they started, like I had to like get myself into gear or whatever and go hit it. And like I said, this was our first 2 day one down there because the first year was just a single day. But yeah, so like we were like, we're not gonna play last again. It's just too long of a weekend to get there before everybody gets there on Friday and then have to try to headline the entire thing or at least just close it out. Headlining's the gracious term for that. But yeah, being able to like there was two times on stage where I felt like it was like the old rotary TV, like I felt my brain go.
Oh yeah.
I was like, and I literally had to figure out where we were in a song like twice, where I was like, oh shit, that's not cool.
Like, oh, I hit the wrong channel. It's all this fucking snow. What's going on
Yeah,
here?
yeah. No, it was kind of surreal, but like I'm assuming I was exhausted. The liquid edibles probably didn't help. Uh, you know, all the things that you do at a camp out festival over 2 days. Um, but yeah, no. So getting smarter about that, getting smarter about how we plan our weekend out. not kill me mainly. Everybody else held up pretty good for the most part, but yeah,
Don't
it's
die, Dave.
no, shit, I'm too ornery too. But we're at a good point right now. I mean, our pre-sales this year did better than any other year. I got people from Ohio, Tennessee, Indiana, Texas, and California with pre-sales bought.
Hell yeah.
So, which is crazy because it's like, sometimes it's like pulling teeth in your own backyard, but then you get people from other states. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Let's go.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's that old story of like you're in a band and your band's doing something, and all these people say they support you, and then when you play a show, they're like, "Hey, dude, can you put me on a guest list?
Yeah.
Like, can I get a free t-shirt? Like, hold on, I'm trying to do something." Like,
Well, and there's another layer too, like, when you're booking these kind of things and there's 24 bands on it, it's I mean, not to say I've had any blowback this year, but in previous years, you get a band or two. It's like, hey man, like, why ain't you hit us up? It's like, well, have you been at any of these, or you know, it's like
right,
just little shit. Because it's a business. It's a business that we have a lot of fucking fun with. But there is a little bit scratch my ass, I'll scratch yours. And we've done a pretty good job with the bands that have helped us anywhere along the way, especially like traveling bands. Um, like the bands I've been able to pull in over the course of the 5 years, and especially this year, because we probably have more out of staters, and they're all a little more like concentrated in a region. Like I had Costa Casanova come from Maryland year two. They had to come a long ass way. I mean, Richmond, Virginia ain't no fucking sneeze either, but we
right.
got a lot of bands from North Carolina and Tennessee and obviously Horseburner from West Virginia. But
Yes.
so and like and that's the big thing with this festival is like a lot of it is like, hey, let's celebrate Kentucky while bringing in the friends because it's really hard to do one of these things. And I mean, as much as I want to pull in anybody and everybody in fantasy book it out the ass, got to be realistic.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
but
there's so much good fucking music in this area
there,
right now. It's not a bad thing at all.
no, that's I think that's something that Reagan and I constantly like talking to people. It's like you realize like we've got some of the best music in the world in this region right now. Like the bands that are coming up, the bands that are playing are phenomenal musicians, good people, which is fucking awesome. Like you go to a show and it's like, hey, it's family, dude. Everyone's like hugging, like, hey, I haven't seen you in a minute. What's up? Um, it's super cool. The bands are fucking phenomenal. I'm stoked that you got Hempire on, like that they're gonna be here and playing. Like, yeah. Um, realistically though, because we haven't said the dates, July 11th and 12th for Holler of Doom 5. Um, the bands, there's not a bad band on here. WindRider, Horseburner, Realm, Slow Wake, Pond Digger,
Slow
Banshee.
Wake. So actually, Slow Wake had to drop, and but I got Worm Sun, which if you've are you familiar?
I am not.
So right, Worm Sun is Brian and Nick from Weed Demon's other band.
Okay.
They're really so they played last year on Friday, and they were kind of a big unknown because they only had like a single or two on online, and I booked Weed Demon, and they were like, "Hey, can we jump on?" And they fucking melted our brains Friday night. So unfortunately, Slow Wake had to drop because somebody started a new job. But Worm Sun's on there. I brought them back as soon as I was like, "All right, Northern Ohio band, let me switch that with another Central Ohio band," and yeah, we're stoked for that one because the Saturday night closeouts, Worm Sun, Realm, Horseburner, and WindRider back to back to back to back. So
Holy shit.
yeah,
That's gonna be hot, dude. So you guys can't miss it. Duh,
no,
you just can't. You also have Star Guided Vessel, Hempire, who I fucking love, Sun Mantra, Calgon, Take Me Away, Them Goddamn Bangs, Haywood, Molly's Midnight Villains, Sad Black Lab, You Fucking Amazing Dudes, and StormToker, Appalachian, Karma Vulture, Omen Bringer,
All right, so that's
Kyan.
another one. That's another
Oh,
one. Omen Bringer is looking for a drummer right now. So if you're listening to this, go play drums for them because they're phenomenal. But
and
I had to bring in the guy that's running sound. I threw him a bone again this year, and damage therapy is going to step in for them.
okay.
So, but and then Jarn is what you were.
Kyo- Awesome. Thank you for that. Because I'm
Hey,
like,
no
I
problem,
don't fucking know. We
no
also
problem.
have Bongfoot, Acromancer, who seems to be making waves right now, Pinhead Poison, and Hollows. What the fuck, dude?
I mean, it's 24 bands of the gloomiest and doomiest. It's pretty sweet.
I think there are
But
going to be, I think a lot of those bands are going to find some people that maybe didn't know them before at Holler. And not, I'm sure that everyone there is familiar with the majority of the bands on this bill.
yeah, oh, I mean for sure. I'm I've been wearing out Realm the last few weeks. We've gotten a chance to play with them once, and that was like as soon as we played with them the first time, it was like a fancy like booking thing. Like, all right, I need to get them on a holler like ASAP. So, and like I said, I already talked about my excitement of that, but like never mind. It's like the last seven bands of that day. I got Black Moon Cult, who we just did a little run with last month. Banshee. I mean, Banshee. Ramona's incredible. I think she's got the most energy of any performer I've maybe ever seen. I don't know. She's electric. And then like I said, Pondegger with their first two albums and how quickly they've ascended the scene is incredible as well. And then, like I said, closing out Friday, I mean, Kjarn's actually Mike Brewer. He's the one that hit us up originally to do Holler of Doom. And it was more like we were doing all those Mountains of Metal festivals at the same spot. And he was trying to get his legs about him or whatever. And we came down and we caught fire with the locals of the area. Like they just loved us. And like you could tell, like there was like every Mountains of Metal, it's like there was like a rise in the middle of the day because he kept putting us at the 420 slot. So, but like all the like it was just like everybody would kind of wake up for a second and then like they kind of they come go back out and wait for like the nighttime for everything to cool off, which at festivals it happens. But like having Kjarn, who like I said, their new album, wonderful thrash metal. They're the heaviest band on the bill, but I have him on every year, or well, I mean, except for the first one, but I've had him on every one after that, because I mean, like I said, without him, this isn't even possible either. So shout out Mike Brewer. But yeah, Karma Vulture from Nashville. I ain't gonna lie, I think Appalachian is my favorite band in Kentucky. Uh,
That says, that's like speaks volumes, dude. Like literally, I think you had them last year, and I talked to probably a dozen people after, and they're like, "Oh my God, Appalachitari."
well, and I mean, that's also John Haywood as well. So like, not only do I have this wonderful Judas Priest had sex with a mountain mama in CBGB's bathroom type of band, and that's literally how I describe them to people. Uh, I get that dude to play bluegrass as like a hangover set the next day, which that's what the Sad Black Lab, Molly Midnight Villains, and John like Haywood back to back to back to start Saturday. I did it year two for the first time where it was just like let's bring a calm Saturday start before we kick into this stuff, and then like festivals like Muddy Roots that were kind of mixing those lines anyways.
Yeah,
Like well, like, let's dabble in that, and everybody was so into Sad Black Lab, having just the fiddle raging through the holler and having like just that peace. So I've expanded it every year. It's like first year that was just them. Last year I had Sad Black Lab and Haywood start the day. This year I added Molly and like man, like the hangover sets, like you'd be surprised how much that's like a huge takeaway every year by everybody. Because it's just like the after you rage so hard Friday night and you want nothing else to do but die. These bands kind of or these acts kind of heal you a little bit before the madness starts again. So
that's funny. It's also, it's also really cool because who really goes to a festival with a lot of heavy music going, okay, we're gonna hear some bluegrass too. Like I don't.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing with for me, like that goes back to just what StormToker is and what my musical tastes are, and like you know I think like the greater stoner doom umbrella goes into psychedelic realm. Pretty much it's like everybody picked their favorite '70s band and fucking branched off of that. Like that's
Yes.
the gist of what or the other thing I like to say is there's really only two genres. It's people that still use amps and people that use modelers. Like
Yeah.
so the biggest prerequisite is every band on this fucking bill is playing through big old stacks of amps. So you could that's probably the one like true thread through all of it. But it's the fact that my band is like, you got one guy that, if you put his voice through the right, filters, he's going to sound more like Uncle Acid, and I sound like more like Chuck Schuldiner from Death. And then, you got Dante shouting his hardcore vocal from the drums. It's like, when I'm building this lineup, that's very much so like a thing of like, all right, well, how would I keep myself interested, you know?
That's
And
y- the really cool thing is it touches on so many different elements. Like um I'm a big metalhead, obviously, right? Um my wife's friends, that's how they know me. They only know that I listen to metal. So we went to Bourbon and Beyond a couple of years ago. Not really my scene, but my wife's like favorite bands playing. I'm like, cool, we'll go because you go to everything with me. And I'm hanging out with like a couple of her friends before she gets there, and this band plays, and they're, I don't know, Americana, country, I don't know what you call them, but their fucking show was, it was amazing. So much so, I fucking went online and ordered a fucking record as soon as they were done to get it shipped to my fucking house. I was just like, I gotta have that.
see, that's
Her,
the power of live. The power of
yeah,
live.
her
Like
friend goes, you fucking like that? Yeah, they were fucking good. She goes, I had no idea because they are so folky or Americana or whatever she said. And I'm like, I fucking like that shit too. Like, just because you
well,
know me as the metalhead doesn't mean that that's all I listen to, you know?
yeah. Well, see, that was the beauty of because like I've had Appalachian on a couple times even like I'll put them on every one just for my own personal fucking wanking. But uh, when you get to experience the pyrotechnics of Haywood playing the flying V and just shredding a fucking guitar, and then everybody gets to wake up bleary eyed and like fucking the next day trying to get their shit together, and they see him playing banjo and singing songs that just got ripped out of a mountain somewhere. It's a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful dynamic, and really like the reason why I even got the idea to go out book him is it was like 4 in the morning, and I just went to a fire that was out in the back of the field, and I go take a stroll, and I hear this fiddle coming from back there, and I'm like, well, what the hell's going on over here? And me and a friend of mine went back there and just sat down, and it was just him after Appalachian played, and he's over here just like sitting by a fire playing fiddle and singing just old folk songs and stuff, and you're like, God damn, this is incredible, it's
Yeah.
so I really was like, let me bring that experience to the front of the field, for everybody else. And that's the beauty of a thing like Holler of Doom is, you can literally travel each little campsite and experience 100 different things. The 100 different groups of friends doing, whatever the fuck they do. I know last year we had, I didn't get up and quite go visit it, but I heard there was like a jam that had some flute going on back there, and the 4 in the morning stuff at Holler is just as cool. And we usually, people get on the, usually band members, but they'll get on the stage after the hours are done, and we've jammed it almost till the sun came up a couple times.
Hell
Actually,
yeah.
funny story. We I started jamming one year at Holler. I got it. I was the one that initiated it, so I'm carrying my pedals across the field and whatever. And I go start playing. I woke my drummer up. I woke Dante up, but you know where he was sleeping? He was sleeping in a porta potty.
Uh,
He was taking a deuce and I guess leaned on the wall or something. But yeah, he had passed out cold in a porta potty, and I started playing, and he woke up and went came and jammed.
that's like that's the power of music. It will wake you up in the middle of a shit and make you want to go play more. Like, all right.
Well, and that's that there's pictures of me passed like I literally passed out next to a fire. I was the last person next to the bonfire. Somebody woke up, caught a little snapshot, and they went back to sleep. But when you're down there for like I said, those 2 days, all kinds of interesting scenarios play out. So, but
Yeah,
you know,
there's something similar that that I did for a few years. Uh, it was called Pete Fest and transitioned to the Big Stomp. Had it in the field, and I mean, I don't know, I'm probably 30, 40 bands over the course of the weekend. And same thing, camping. And like the bands were cool, but it was the shit that went on after the bands got off that was like super cool. The relationships that are made because everyone's like, dude, that was so good. Oh, what'd you like? Oh man, I really liked this. Oh, that's fucking awesome. Did you know this? Because this sounds like that. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
really? Like that's where in my mind that's where the community really comes together and fucking thrives.
Well, and a lot of this, like, as far as like, just to kind of take it back to like my formative years, like, I remember in high school, everybody started going to all the hippie festivals. So, like, Terrapin Hill and stuff of that nature. And in my head, they would come back and they tell me all this shit. And I had no interest in EDM and I had zero interest in bluegrass at the time.
Right.
So, like, they're doing DJ, like, what they're telling me musically, I'm like, what the fuck? But everything else sounded really, really fucking fun. And I was like, man, like, wish there was something, for heavy music like that. And, I know there's been things kind of come and go, but, you only know what you know. I went to Full Terror Assault like 4 of the first 5 years or 4 of the first 6 years. And, like you never had like the overwhelming big festival crowd, but you could meet you were literally able to meet people from all over the world in this little town of 110 people and see some of the best bands ever, I mean, fuck. Like one year I know that like I think my favorite year is like Toxic Holocaust, Goat Whore, Crowbar, uh, and then like Overkill was the headliner, one of my favorite bands ever as a thrash kid. So like,
Dude,
I took that.
I gotta stop you just for a second there. I love Overkill too. Their new drummer is a buddy of mine.
Oh, so the dude that came in after Bittner.
Yeah, Jeremy Kling.
Okay. Have they put anything out with him yet?
Not yet. They're
Not yet. Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, like they toured they did a I think a European tour, and then they did a tour in the States with him with King Diamond, and they've done probably what they do, Sonic Temple maybe um
Yeah.
this year. And but I think this year is like a light live year for them. So I think they might be writing.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen him. I've got a chance to see him, I think at least 4 times, might be five. I hate trying to go through the Rolodex
Oh
because,
yeah.
it is what it is. And I remember one of the times was Bobby uh had like the walking pneumonia fit in the middle of the tour, so he actually had to cancel on I think it was like Testament and Anthrax or something, or
Ah,
Testament and Exodus. So, but so I missed him one time, but like I said, I think I've seen him 4 full times. But yeah, man, I fucking love Overkill. So,
that's awesome.
but yeah, just. trying to figure out the point I was trying to make.
So I totally
Go.
fucking sidetracked you. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good. No, you're good. But going to a festival like that and like the magic of what that was and the relationships I built there. And then like, like I've played in Indianapolis and there's a guy named Bill Roscoe that, he'll come out and see us when we're up there. And it's just like from, smoking hash with him and, in the field at at Full Terrace Salt. And, just knowing people like I had a buddy named Darren Falconberry that was from Arizona, rest in peace. But like every year it was just like seeing this, you just like this dad like figure in this field, and you just hugged him, loved him, and you know, he always was like, "Hey, come over and get some fucking food or whatever." And I don't know where he was ever camping because I was always too fucked up to figure out where anybody was camping. I might have left myself, but like so like just having that influence. And then when we started doing Mountains of Metal, and I would say the Mountains, got off to like a rough start uh from a technical mechanical standpoint. Like they had to work through some kinks with like scheduling and sound guys, and where some other bands of my friends that were in bands at the time that played those events that got like discouraged. I was always like, man, this could be so much more. And like me and Mike Brewer have been like collaborative in a way ever since. Like, he started using the sound guys I brought in, and started looking at how I did some things and who I was bringing in, and we share a lot of the bands, and it's great that there can be multiple events down there throughout the year. I think he just announced Mountains of Metal 10 because he was doing it biannually for a while, and he's brought it down to one a year just because it's hard to do too many. But
Oh
he just
yeah.
announced that for like I think the second weekend in October. I think it's the 8th or ninth and 10th, whatever that Friday, Saturday is. But the fact that we can get to five and he can get to 10, and the way I feel about it right now, and maybe a year ago, I didn't know if I had too many more in me. But now I'm like, all right, well, let's get through this one and start working on six. So
That's
they've done hooked me, man. They've done hooked
that's
me.
good. But I think, I think the really important thing is like as this grows from, my perspective is just make sure you've got a solid team around you to help, to really help it build organically and not try to push too much into it at one time because you can
Yeah,
that's that
burn the fuck
I
out.
yeah, that's where you get burned out and you're like, fuck that. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. No, let's have
Well,
fun with it.
but speaking on the letting it happen organically and like, whatever, it's like that's kind of where it is with the relationships of, what you establish down there. And then, you got a chick like Emily is going to come from Indianapolis and take 1,000 photos and promote the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Like
I
she,
fucking love her, dude. She's so sweet.
yeah, fucking salt of the earth. Um, and I will say the one thing almost every time that I feel like a certain like way where I'm like, all right, like, is this even fucking worth doing? It's like I'll start pushing it or I'll start promoting it. And then you see like every band and like all the people that love it start pushing it and sharing it. And then you really start to go, all right, the community is behind this. Um, Toke Mage is going to donate me some dugouts to sell this year. He's coming from Texas, again. He's coming to Texas from Texas twice this year to come check out some Kentucky boys, just trying their damnedest. Um, and it's just you get reminded every now and again of like, all right, like you get caught up in your own shit. You try to figure out what the hell StormToker's doing, or like when the album's coming out, and you got everybody else doing what they're doing, and you're like, all right, where can we be better? This, that, and the, oh, I got a festival on top of this to worry about, this, that, and the other. And you you like I said, you can get overwhelmed, but I will say like that this year, especially the greater community has like really reinforced what it is for me. Plus, my girlfriend had threatened to kill me if I quit doing it ever. So,
Like,
but she's in love with it. She'd never been camping till. she came last year, and me and her had just met, and she took a chance, and here we are,
Hell
X
yeah.
amount of time later. I guess 10 months here coming up, but she's still stuck with me. I didn't scare her off, and but, so if there's anything to be said, you can fall in love in the holler, y'all. Get your ass out.
In in the holler. You hear that? It's not really a holler of doom. It's a holler of love. It's just for you. That's so funny.
It's it,
That
it's literally the hippie fest of heavy fest, and but I'm more than okay with it because it's just it's a part of what this all is all about, man. And if
yeah,
you if
that
you if you've been around this scene enough, you know how much love there is from
for
band to
sure.
band, person to person, photographer to band, the whole nine bartenders, just everybody that's in this scene in this state, like that, because we have to keep it going. Like,
Well,
fuck, dude.
I think at the end of the day, right? Like if everything was all toxic and everyone's like infighting and shit, like it's not going to go anywhere because at a certain point no one wants to be around each other, and that's one thing that like legalize. Of course, we year two for legalize this year, but going and seeing everyone and so many hugs and so many smiles and friendly faces and people just like catching up because maybe you hadn't seen someone for a while, or like they're on the other side of Ohio or in Michigan or wherever the fuck they're from, so it's
Well,
and holler
and
holler I assume is the same fucking way.
well, that and the thing is with legalize, it helps feed holler, and holler helps feed legalize. Like
Yeah.
we got Laura McGee and Brett from like who's a little north of Knoxville, and it's like if any of the Lexington bands are playing together, like if it's Pondegger, StormToker, I mean, not to say they're exactly from Lexington, but we'll say Central Kentucky, but if it's Cross Swampok or whatever, there was a 3 show in 2 week span that I saw them, and it was Lexington twice and Richmond, and they drove up each time. One was my birthday show, one was the crop gig, and then another one was us and Pondegger in a barbershop uh, basement, and they came up every time. And it's like when you got people doing that because of how much they love it, it's like, man, that goes back to the point I made earlier. It's like when you got California and Texas coming, it's like, come on, guys, like the backyard can show out. So,
You know
I
what? Like, yeah, but whether they show up or not, it doesn't matter because it's resonating with people from far away, and that's as long as in my mind, and I don't mean to like speak for you, but in my mind, as long as it resonates with people and grows, I think that's so what if the neighbor doesn't show up? Like, cool, when it's fucking huge and you go, hey man, can I get a ticket? You're like, sure, it's going to cost you, $150 for the
yeah.
weekend because that's what it is.
Oh no, it is definitely all love for the game because you can't get the five of something you're trying to build without loving the game, and
That's the
especially
truth.
trying to do it in old London, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like we're not even, we're driving an hour and a half to be like the main local band, other than like Jarn. But yeah, it's like when you're working with, it's like, all right, here's the region. Like, there is like London is going to be limited in who can come locally, so you got to pull it from all directions. And like I said, this year, you know, like I said, the pre-sales, and we kind of needed the pre-sales this year due to some just behind the scenes business stuff that started going on, and they came through for us, man. So like,
Hell yeah.
I'm hoping that's a greater sign of things to come. We're finally gonna have merch this year, so 5 Holler of Doom later, we're gonna have shirts, we're gonna have koozies, as I said. Anton from Tug Mage is gonna donate a good 15 to 20, I think. Doug, as he said. Um, and it's just like I said, it's shit like that where you're like, all right, man, like you get reminded how lucky you are to have the support of, shit like this shrinks the country, it shrinks the world. Everybody feels closer when you can get in a spot like that. And it's like I said, I got North Carolina, Tennessee, Ohio, West Virginia. We've done, like I said, Maryland. We've done, Virginia. It's like when you're pulling in bands, and I haven't been too ambitious trying to pull in bands from across the country. But again, like I said, just knowing where our means are, but I don't have to pull in bands from across the country because there's so much to draw from in this region, and I'm lucky to know every one of these people and be rubbing shoulders and fucking creating beautiful moments. Because that's the thing with Holler is like a lot of the bands are going to be there both days. A lot of bands are going to camp out, have a good time, hug you after your set with their sweaty ass, whatever. You're gonna get a lot of sweat rubbed on you all weekend,
Hell yeah.
but
But that's, it's I'm a big mental health proponent, and I think things like this, it's that sense of community that we all strive for. You can go and there's like, why are we here? We're here for the music, nothing else, just the music. We're gonna have a good time. People, yeah, they're gonna smoke weed, you're gonna drink, whatever, but everyone's there to have a good fucking time. Like,
well, and everybody that has come, like one of the biggest things is, the discovery aspect of it, and it's just like I said, it's easy to get caught up in your own shit sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's like every time I get to this event and I get into the aftermath of this event and I hear how people talk about this event is as passionate, as loving, as descriptive even like people go out of their way to talk about how awesome Holler is. So like and a lot of the people that are going to show up this weekend have been to all five.
hell
And I
yeah.
think that's a testament to something. Probably, maybe mild idiocy, but no, but just the fact that this thing and it's grown every year. Like we have seen palpable growth every year, and it might be fucking 15, 20 people at a time, but it's 15, 20 people we didn't get before. And
Yep.
as long as the people behind the scenes keep staying patient with it, and we keep, putting the effort in to do as much as we can with it. And like I said, I think at least the way it's played out here in the last honestly few weeks, like when we decided we were going to go in on the merch and like do a couple things, and then like I said, even Anton, like I said, the Anton Tugmage thing just blows my mind that like somebody from Texas who met me for the first time at Legalize, who I mean, we and him had well worked together before on some StormToker dugouts and whatnot, but just meeting them and them thinking enough of me and what Legalize was to go, all right, we're gonna come fucking back. And then
Hell
that's
yeah.
the same thing with Emily from Indiana. It's the same thing as the couple we got coming from California. Like they went to Legalize last year. They came to Holler right after that. And so like it's just, and I encourage if you're a band with any amount of clout in your area, fucking put on something whether you think you're capable or not. Like just fucking clumsily figure the shit out
Yeah.
because there's so many opportunities for us to do greater things and we could create a circuit of it. I mean, we're in this region that has a lot of fucking land to fuck with, and it doesn't have to be on land. But like, you get legalized, you get us in Kentucky. You can't tell me Tennessee can't fucking step that game up a little bit. You can't tell me that North Carolina can step that game, which, I know they have events too. But I'm just saying, even on an individual band level, like if you believe that, you can do something greater, do something greater. We just need more events, period.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely need more fucking events. Put on events. More events.
Plural, plural.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be cool, to see. I mean, what Maryland Doomfest is this weekend, isn't it? Sure the fuck
Yeah.
is. The last
And
one.
yeah, but and
Ah,
when I got that news, I was like, thank God me and Braun are putting those two things together. And we're, and we have an avenue, but it's like there's too many good bands to, that like I said, just everybody I say just get a little more ambitious and
well,
let's
and I think you're absolutely right. There are so many good bands, and I also think that if we look historically at music, we have rises in thrash and punk, and I think we are on the cusp of like doom really starting to take over. Because I mean, like High on Fire is I feel like they're
bigger than
fucking
they've
bigger
ever
than,
been.
yeah, and so many bands coming in right behind them. Um, and the just seeing the write-ups of some of those albums and the amount of activity surrounding like stoner and doom and psychedelia right now is it's fucking great to see. It is so
Yeah.
great to see.
Well, and I will say that I think the modern music business, it kind of makes it hard for anything to catch a wave that is necessarily massively perceived as cool. But if you look at what all of us are doing and not caring about the massive perceived cool factor, and that we're trying to build it up fucking anyways. Hey, if the world catches on, great, but we got a pretty goddamn good world ourselves. So
I I absolutely agree, but that's why it's like that's why it's so good because it's authentic. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. You know what I mean? Like you guys obviously doing your thing, Crop doing their thing, Blessed Black doing their thing, She and Banshee and fucking,
Fairy
ever
ring.
yeah, dude. Like so many just phenomenal bands and for any of you out there, you get a chance to see any of those bands mentioned in this at all, make sure to go see them. Buy an album, buy a CD, buy a t-shirt, whatever. Um, because I guarantee you one of those bands is going to fucking blow up and you're going to be like, damn, I knew I should have went to see him when I could.
Well, and look at these damn flyers and just go, oh, who have I not heard of? And if you can't go to the fucking fest, use the fest. I mean, they're gonna be through Lexington, they're gonna be through Louisville, they're gonna be through Cincinnati. So it's like, even if you can't make it to Holler, which of course everybody on the planet's gonna make it to Holler, like I have no doubts. But
Yeah,
if
you
you
hear that,
can't make it to
Australia?
Holler, yeah, get your ass over here. But if you can't make it to any of these bigger events and you recognize one name, you recognize two names, go diving, go excavate that
Yes.
flyer and figure out what is under that surface. Because I mean, I've said this a thousand times in the last 6, 7 years. If all I had to listen to were the bands of my immediate peers, I'd be a fully satisfied musical being.
Mm,
And
I
goddamn, I love me my Ozzy, I love me my Iron Maidens, I love me my Judas Priest. But for some reason, you just poof, that was all gone, and it was just all the people that I know personally that are doing things. Like if it was just my people, it's like my music taste would be more than satisfied.
yeah.
And that's just a beautiful thing to realize. And it's like I said, we're lucky to exist in a time, as much as we want to talk about streaming or accessibility being like a bad thing, it's like, when you break down creating worthwhile relationships with people and bands, I don't know if there's a better time,
I don't
especially
think
with an
there
event like
is.
this.
I absolutely don't think there is. I think this is like, obviously, I think you and me are a little different than I'll say the majority of the world. Um, but like to me, you know, same as you, right? This is where my passion is. I fucking love it. I don't fucking make any money for going to shows. I just go to fucking shows. I don't make any money doing the podcast. I just do the fucking podcast because I want more people to know about the badass bands that I hear and that I know and that I would consider friends of mine, like,
And you do a phenomenal job, man. Everyone
well,
I've been able to actually check out, I because especially like leading up to legalize and it was all the homies. Actually, I think the first time I actually checked you out was when you did Bail from She, and I was like, all right. And it was a great, hour 45 or whatever it was. But yeah, man, we need you. Obviously, you need us because of the the topic, but like the community, like I said, the photographers, the sound guys, the people that are just gonna fucking hand me bottles of water all weekend at Holler because they know I put people on that duty. I'm like, just I need
just
I I can't put it down. If you offer me a bottle of water, I will drink it. I put it on people. So, and I always have a handful
Well,
that take care of me in that regard. But like, it takes everybody, even the water
hell
boy.
yeah. Hell yeah. No one goes anywhere without the water boy. Um,
Exactly.
I'm going to give you one task for Holler this year, and it's another thing to put on your plate. Take a notebook and make notes because at the end of Holler, I would, Emily and I, along with another buddy of mine, are working on something. I would like for you to write up like a post Holler, like your post-coital description. This is what I fucking went through.
All right. I'll
'Cause
I usually make a pretty big post the end of it at the end of it all too, but I might save that for you. So,
hell yeah. All right, Dave, I got a show tonight. Hollow Leg and Florist are playing.
well, get your ass out there. And if you're well, when's this gonna go up?
Uh, Hold on, what is today? Monday? Either Sunday or the following Wednesday.
All right. StormToker has two potential shows between now and Holler. June, fuck, I think the 28th. See, I'm terrible at this. I didn't do these, but June 28th in Danville. And we are trying to figure it out, but we might be playing the Pride Festival in Lexington.
Okay.
Uh, Trying to get word back on that. But beyond that, yeah, Holler of Doom, July 11th to 12th, $30 a day. You're not going to regret it. And I'll
No,
probably be mostly naked for at least a third of it.
I mean, you might regret it, but it's just going to be because of the amount you drank.
Yeah, or among many other things.
Yeah, yes, among anything else. Dave, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I can't wait to see you and give you another hug.
Hey, thank you, sir. And shit, once the album comes out, we get moving. Shit, I might come back and do this thing again.
I think we need to. Awesome. Have a great
All
night,
right,
dude.
brother. Hey, love you, man.
Love you too. See ya.